I don't know about you, but I used to struggle to get my homework done in high school, middle school, especially high school. I remember I'd get my homework assignments and I would tell myself, soon as I get home, soon as I get to the crib, I'm going to finish my homework. The problem is I'd get home, eat some food, and go to my room. In my room, of course, was my bed. I had a TV and I had an Xbox. So I would go from sitting on my bed to laying on my bed to turning on the TV and taking a long nap. How many of y'all remember that though? Like those after school naps, you're exhausted and it's honestly some of the best sleep I've ever gotten. Sometimes you wake up and you think it's the next day, feel me? And so that would happen. The problem with that is that I didn't design my environment for success. I didn't design my environment for success. And I was relying on willpower and not systems to accomplish and complete my homework. I was relying on willpower, not systems to accomplish my homework or complete my homework. Fortunately, I've grown a lot in this area, and I'm going to share with you some of what I've learned over the years about how to not rely on willpower, but establish and rely on systems. And so, here's a few things that I've learned in this topic or with this topic. One of the things I've learned is your physical environment is either helping you or holding you back. Your physical environment is either helping you or holding you back. I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that when my physical space is dirty or disorganized, it's hard for me to focus on anything else. Example, if if our home is disorganized and dirty and we got mad dishes or a bunch of dishes in the sink, it's hard for me to focus and write content for this podcast or make that sales call. When our car is dirty, my wife and I's car is dirty, or there's a bunch of stuff in it. It also affects me, and I think I've heard this before, and I agree with this. I don't know if you will, but um, your external environment is a reflection of your internal environment. So when our physical space is chaotic, oftentimes we feel chaotic and anxious, and we might not know why that is, but I think our physical environment plays a role in that. I like this quote. I think this quote is really cool, and it's most people don't lack discipline. They're just living in an environment that works against them. Most people don't lack discipline. They're just living in an environment that works against them. So I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but I thought this was interesting, right? Because I think many of you will relate to this. When your physical space is not great or not organized, you kind of feel a little anxious or frustrated or annoyed, and you might not know why that is. So I wanted to look deeper into it and see if there's any science behind it or any studies behind it. And I thought this was cool. So you get better sleep when your physical space is organized and clean. So when your bedroom is clean, you got fresh sheets, right? Your bed is made, laundry's put away, you get better sleep. I mean, how many of you can relate to that? I know when our bed sheets are changed and cleaned and it's time for us to go to bed, I sleep I sleep good. I sleep really good. Another thing that I thought was interesting was higher productivity. So we're more productive when our physical space is clean and organized. I think one of the reasons is that there's less distraction. For me, right? If I'm recording this podcast or I am working on something for business and I got a bunch of dishes in the sink and clothes everywhere, it's hard for me to focus because I'm distracted. In my mind, I'm like, well, I got to clean this. I got to clean that. I got to do this. I got to do that. So, one, we get better sleep when our physical environment is clean. Two, higher productivity. And then three, I thought this was cool, and you might think it's cool as well, but it reduces anxiety. So, having a physical environment gives you better sleep, higher productivity, and less anxiety. That's just by having a clean place. So if we just keep our places clean, we'll benefit from those three things. The point of sharing this is let's design our environment for success. Let's design your environment for success. Second thing that I've learned about why your environment matters more than motivation. And I've learned this over the years, and I'm still learning it, and I'm still unlearning a lot of things. But it's that your social circle shapes your standards. There's a lot of S's there, but I think this will help somebody. Your social circle shapes your standards. I think we've all heard this cliche or this saying, right? That you're likely to be like the five closest people that you hang out with. And I have an example of this, of the positives of hanging out with people or shaping your social circle to be with people who help you improve and grow. So, some of you guys that are subscribed to the channel, I know you guys are hoopers, right? You play basketball and you're athletes and you like to play sports. So, I played ball in college and high school, and every now and then I'll play in a men's league, right? A men's basketball league. So, this time last year, I'm playing in a men's league with one of my boys, one of my good friends. And in this league, they record the games, but they use AI to break down all your stats. So it could say like, Brandon, 20 points. Nah, I'm hyping myself up. Brandon, 35 points, 15 assists, and you'll see it in the app, right? There isn't a physical person that's writing it down. It's all AI getting that information. Super dope. So we had our first game. My boy and I look at our stats and we're like, oh, this is really cool. So the following week, my boy and I, we're warming up, we're shooting around, waiting for our game to start. And my boy says, he's like, Brandon, that app is really cool, right? I'm like, yeah, it's a cool app, I guess. Like, good information. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna reach out to them and see if I can schedule a call because it might be worth investing in. I was like, what? In my mind, right? I'm like, what? Because I wasn't at all thinking about the opportunity that this app might bring, right? Like, I wasn't thinking this is a great investment opportunity. I was just thinking it's a pretty cool app because I get to see all my stats. But my boy was thinking, oh, this would be a great investment because it's a really cool app and breaks down all your stats. So that's just one example of how being around the right people can change your mindset and in the right direction, right? Right people, right direction. Proverbs 13:20. Proverbs 13:20 says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. Your social circle shapes your standard. So that was a positive example of hanging out or being intentional about who you spend your time with or invest your time with. An opposite story of personal example of maybe not a so good way of shaping my circle is I used to work in the city, right? I used to work in the city, and after work, city's booming, right? I was never a big drinker, never a heavy drinker. But when I started working in the city, a lot of my colleagues, my coworkers were drinkers. Like every day after work, they're going to the bar and drinking. And these guys were cool. Like I enjoyed their company. I enjoyed spending time with them. But I went from not being a drinker at all. And by not being a drinker, I mean maybe like once a month I would have a drink to I'm drinking 3-4 times a week because I'm hanging out with these guys and going out after work almost on a daily basis. So you see the first example with the investment story, right? With the AI app. And then the other example of hanging out with my boys in the city and going out to drink often. Personally, for me, that's not a habit or behavior that I wanted to keep up with. And there's this verse that pops up to me all the time or pops up in my mind, especially when I'm having conversations with people about being intentional about who we hang out with. And it's found in 2 Corinthians 15:33. And it says, do not be deceived, for bad company corrupts good habits. Or another example is, Do not be deceived, for bad company ruins good morals. So we got to be intentional about who we're investing our time in and with. Your social circle shapes your standards. So that's something I've been learning and have learned, and am super intentional about who I invest my time with, because your environment matters more than your motivation. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this quote, but it's habits spread through proximity, not intention. Habits spread through proximity, not intention. Example, right? Again, I like to dig into the research. These are things that like my mom has grown up telling me, right? I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Hispanic, so my mom be like, think without who you're hanging with. Be careful who you hang with because it'll affect you and it'll affect your future. I'm like, all right, ma, like whatever. So I wanted to actually see if there's any studies and research on this. All right, I'm gonna lay down some stats. I might step on some toes, but did you know that if you hang out with a friend, someone you spend time with, intentional time with often, who's not active, who doesn't prioritize, consuming healthy, nutritious foods, doesn't move their body for exercise, are obese, your chances, my chances, our chances of becoming obese increase by 45%. So by just spending time with someone who doesn't prioritize, an active lifestyle and is obese, our chances increase by 45% to also become overweight and obese. I didn't know about this, so I'm curious if you guys have heard this before, but it's a study from Northwestern University. And it found that just sitting next to a high performer, so someone who gets things done, shows up on time, thinks ahead, right? Forward thinks and backwards plans. Our own performance will increase by 15%. Just sitting next to a high performer increases our chances to be a better performer by 15%. That's really cool, right? But what's the opposite of that? What's the other end or the other side of that coin? Is if we hang out with a low performer, so someone who doesn't show up on time, is complaining often, doesn't turn in assignments on time, our performance, your performance, will decrease by 30%. 30%. So if you hang out or sit next to a high performer, it increases by 15. But if we sit next to a low performer, our performance decreases by 30%. 30. Crazy. Remember, the people we hang out with can shape our habits, they can shape our mindset. So if we're sitting next to someone who's a low performer, oftentimes what happens is instead of lifting them up and having them follow our lead, we tend to stoop down to their level and become a low performer. The people we hang out with play a huge role in shaping our habits, shaping our thought life, and shaping our actions. So we have to be very intentional with who we invest and spend our time with. I really like this quote from James Clear. James Clear wrote a book that is honestly one of my favorite books. And in a future podcast, we're going to do a book summary on this book by this author. And the author is James Clear, and the book is called Atomic Habits. One of my favorite books of all time. And again, we'll do a book summary on this. I'll share some of the key takeaways from that book. James Clear says this: join groups where your desired behavior is normal behavior. Join groups where your desired behavior is normal behavior. What does that mean? If you want to be more active, right? You want to be more fit, join a group exercise class. Or you want to become a reader, join a book club. Or you want to learn how to knit, join a knitting club, right? Join a group where your desired behavior is normal behavior. That's how powerful the people that you invest and spend your time with is. Okay, another thing I've learned over the years. So I'm going from being someone who procrastinates on their homework, says they're going to do their homework, but my environment wasn't designed for success, is this: success comes from systems, not willpower. Success comes from systems, not willpower. All right, so I feel like systems is a word that gets thrown around often, right? They're like, you're not where you want to be because you don't have systems. Or if you want to improve your business, you need better systems. Systems this. We need someone who can come into this organization and improve our systems. But what does systems mean, right? I feel like it's become this blanket term. So I want to define system. I looked for a bunch of different definitions of system and I really liked this one and I tailored it a little bit. System. A system is how you make the right thing easier and the wrong thing harder. A system is how you make the right thing easier and the wrong thing harder. Success comes from systems, not willpower. All right, so that leads us to willpower. What does willpower mean? And there's a bunch of definitions online. If you Google what does willpower mean, there's going to be a bunch of different definitions. But I really like this one. Willpower is effort without structure. Willpower is effort without structure. I remember when I started taking learning seriously. And a couple podcast episodes ago, I mentioned how I was a terrible student. And that's not like I'm not exaggerating. I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA. Crazy. But I remember when I started taking learning seriously and I told myself, I'm going to be better tomorrow than I am today. And I'm going to be better the next day than I was yesterday. And I really was intentional about wanting to grow and develop and be better, be a better person, be a better man. And I bought a bunch of books. I bought a bunch of books because that's one thing I learned. And that's one thing my local librarian said was, Brandon, if you want to be able to learn more, if you want to be better and improve, start reading books because that's what helped me. So I said, okay, I bought a bunch of books. And what I learned from that is that we have to set ourselves up for success, right? A system is making the right thing easier and the wrong thing harder. So if I wanted to become a reader and improve and become a better leader, better communicator, better just all around, I needed to set up my environment for success. So I bought a bunch of books and they were in my room, right? They were all across our apartment, my brother and I's apartment. And I heard this from a communicator and I really liked the concept. And he said, if you want to improve, he said, backtrack. He said, we have a lot of excuses for not improving and not growing. And the problem with excuses is oftentimes they're valid, right? They're valid excuses. He goes, but if you want to be intentional about your success or about your growth, he said this, and I thought it was really cool. He said, my home isn't just a house, it's a library. I didn't just make my home a house or my house a home. I made it into a library. He says, my car, your car isn't just a car, it's a college classroom. So your house isn't just a house, turn it into a library. Your car doesn't just have to be a vehicle, it can be a college classroom. And what does he mean by that? Is for me was I bought a bunch of books. That's one of the things that I learned. If I want to grow and improve, I got to become a reader. So I turned my house, my apartment into a library. My car turned into a college classroom. I listened to countless hours of podcasts and audiobooks. How does that relate to you? Many of us may have long commutes for work, right? So throw on a podcast, throw on an audiobook. I added structure and not just willpower. So I did what I could to try and set myself up for success. And here's another quote from James Clear, who I mentioned I really like. He says, most people think change happens because they try harder, but willpower is inconsistent, environment is consistent. Most people think change happens because they try or we try harder, but willpower is inconsistent, but environment can be consistent. Want to become a reader? Fill your place up, fill your home up with a bunch of books. Want to learn new concepts and new ideas? Turn your car into a college classroom. Listen to podcasts when you're on the road. Listen to audiobooks when you're on the road. I remember after playing college ball, right? This is about a year after I graduated and finished playing college basketball. I went to my doctor for my annual checkup and my blood work results came in and I had high cholesterol, y'all. I was out of shape. And the problem was that during the day, I was fine. Like I didn't really eat much junk. But when I got home, we had Oreos at the house. We had chips at the house. We had Chips Ahoy at the house, right? Like all these snacks and processed foods that aren't good for me. But it wasn't until I completely removed all that junk from the house that I started to see results, physical results. So, but here's the problem. I was making the right choice harder, not easier. So I wanted to be fitter and be healthier, but I had junk at the house. So it wasn't until I removed that junk and then made the right decision, picking up some fruit or a banana or making a smoothie instead of just downing a bag of Doritos. It wasn't until I designed my environment for success that I saw results in my physical fitness. All right. So we talked about systems and we talked about willpower. Here are just some basic examples of systems. Because again, systems has this, it's become a blanket term. All systems is making the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. Leaving your phone in another room when you're working, right? So leaving your phone in the bedroom if you work from home so that you can focus and not be distracted. Having your books be visible. So if you want to become a reader, not having the two books that you have in your home locked away in a drawer, because if you can't see it, you probably won't read it. No TV in your room. If you have a TV in your room, you're probably going to want to watch Netflix, which causes you to go to bed later. One thing that I found really helpful for me is having my gym things, my gym items ready the night before. So I tend to get up earlier than my wife, and I don't want to wake her up making noise in the room. So I'll have my workout sneakers and clothes, everything I need to get to the gym in the living room, ready to go. So by the time I wake up, throw my stuff on, straight to the gym. One thing that we don't do it all the time, but it's a system, is meal prepping on Saturdays or Sundays so that you can have nutritious meals for the week. Remember, the goal with the system is to make the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. So that's what I've learned over the years and that I'm still learning. I have not perfected any of this, but it is something that I'm mindful of and intentional about. So I want to leave you with these two reflection questions. The first one is, what one change can you make to your environment this week that will set you up for success? What one change can you make in your environment this week that will set you up for success? Second question is, who do you spend the most time with and who are you becoming because of it? Who do you spend the most time with and who are you becoming because of it? So take those two questions, reflect on it, really think about it, and then make decisions, the proper decisions based off your answers. With that being said, thanks for tuning in to Driven by Growth. It's your boy, Brandon Portillo. Peace.